The alder tree is the home of an interesting insect whose life cycle forms the link in the existence of 4 parasites which lay eggs in or on the larva of the alder woodwasp. Entomologist G.H. Thompson made a special study of the Cepphidria camelus, as the alder woodwasp is known to scientists, and its 4 insect enemies. With his colleague E.R. Skinner of the Oxford School of Forestry, he made a photographic study of these interrelated insect life cycles, thus creating a unique film document of parasite ecology. The 2 scientists searched for a specimen in alder woodlands where many trees were dying, since the alder woodwasp usually lays its eggs in stems and branches of dead trees. Here is what Gerald Thompson reports.
Nearby, we find a recently wind-blown alder tree. Woodwasps are walking on the bark, and looking through a lens, we see a female. She's about 3/4 of an inch long. In midsummer, the woodwasps are busy egg-laying. When seeking a place to drill her egg shaft through the bark, the woodwasp drags the end of her body along crevices in recently dead bark.
The woodwasp has now lowered from its covers her egg-laying tube, or ovipositor. The ovipositor is in 3 parts, each armed at the tip with cutting ridges. The 3 parts together form a tough, hollow instrument which can drill through bark and lay the eggs between bark and wood. When the ovipositor is completely buried, the end of the body becomes pressed against the bark.
To see what is happening, we must now carefully raise the bark on which the woodwasp is at work. The ovipositor has come through the bark and is exuding an orange secretion, which introduces fragments of fungus beneath the bark before the eggs are laid. The eggs, each of which has a long tail, are now about to be laid. At the end of the ovipositor, we can just see the cutting ridges which drill the egg shaft. After laying a group of up to 25 eggs beneath the bark, the female withdraws her ovipositor and moves off to lay other clusters of eggs elsewhere.
The egg is at first oval, but it swells as the embryo develops inside it and hatches in about 17 days. The young larva bores straight into the wood, and we now look inside the stem to follow its progress. The larva tunnels in the stem for about 11 months. At first it bores down into the wood, packing fragments of wood tightly behind itself, but leaving an empty space at the end of its tunnel where it is working. As the larva grows, its skin becomes tight, and so at intervals it molts. When nearly full grown, the larva tunnels up to, but not through, the surface of the wood. The large jaws enable the woodwasp grub to bore through quite hard alder wood. Now only a cap of wood and the bark separates it from the outside. The larva retreats down its tunnel and becomes motionless, and soon the skin opens, revealing the pupa, which is equivalent to the chrysalis stage of the butterfly. The pupa quickly darkens, and after about 2 weeks, the pupal skin is shed. 2 or 3 days later, the young adult begins to eat its way out through the cap of wood and bark. It takes its first look at the outside world, and then with difficulty struggles out through the circular exit hole that it has gnawed. After a good cleaning to remove pieces of wood dust, the young adult roams the bark, and it's there that the males meet the females and mating takes place. Once they are fertilized, the females begin to drill egg shafts and lay their eggs. Here is a daughter of the first female that we saw, and it takes 1 year to complete this cycle.
We shall now see the 4 insect parasites that live at the expense of the woodwasp, starting with Orlicus striatus, which lays her egg inside the woodwasp egg. We find Aulicus adults in June and July, when the woodwasps are egg-laying. There is a female Aulicus walking past a woodwasp. A male approaches and briefly performs his dance of courtship before mating.
After mating, the female is ready to lay her eggs. In order to do this, she has to find the egg shaft of a woodwasp. She carefully explores with her feelers all likely cracks and crevices in the bark. You will remember that it is in such places that the woodwasps drill their egg shafts. When she finds a woodwasp egg shaft, she removes her ovipositor from its protective covers and inserts it down the shaft. The structures sticking up in the air are the covers of the ovipositor. The ovipositor itself is being worked down to the woodwasp eggs beneath the bark. We see that the ovipositor is held between the hind legs for support. Looking beneath the bark, we see the Aulicus ovipositor probing among a cluster of eggs. Aulicus pushes her ovipositor into a woodwasp egg and lays her own egg inside it. She does this to as many eggs as she can reach. Then she withdraws from the woodwasp egg shaft and moves off to continue her search for other groups of eggs.
Those woodwasp eggs with small black marks have been pierced by the ovipositor of Aulicus and will each contain an Aulicus egg. When one of these parasitized eggs hatches, the woodwasp larva contains a young Aulicus larva. In this preparation, we can see the small parasite inside its victim. Nevertheless, the woodwasp feeds and grows. And, of course, Aulicus feeds and grows too.
Not until a year has passed and the woodwasp has tunneled up to the surface does the Aulicus grub finally kill the woodwasp by feeding on its vital organs. The full-grown Aulicus larva now bursts its way out from what is left of the woodwasp. Having rid itself of the woodwasp skin, the Aulicus larva spins a cocoon with silk extruded from the end of its body. The cocoon, at first pale, soon turns a reddish-brown color. Opening it, we can follow the darkening of the pupa. The pupal stage lasts about 2 weeks, and in order to escape, the young adult has only to gnaw an exit hole through the cap of wood left by its victim.
In May, before the woodwasps have emerged, we find our second parasite, Bricella curvipes, flying up and down woodwasp-attacked stems. The long ovipositor shows that this is a female. At intervals, she alights and taps the bark with her feelers. She's seeking to locate a woodwasp larva or pupa in the wood below. The ovipositor is a remarkable instrument. We see it here removed from its covers. An enlarged view of the end shows that it is in 3 parts, each armed at the tip with cutting ridges. The 2 covers are now indicated. They protect the ovipositor when it's not in use and support it when it's at work.
Bricella is drilling a shaft through bark and wood to reach the woodwasp larva. The covers are pressed close to the underside of the body and support the ovipositor to where it enters the bark. Now the ovipositor has come through into the woodwasp tunnel, and the end of the Bricella body is right down on the bark, showing that the ovipositor is completely buried in the wood. At this stage, Bricella stings and paralyzes the woodwasp. Like the woodwasp egg, the Bricella egg has a long tail, but in this case, the tail emerges first. Finally, there appears the main portion in which the embryo will form. The egg is laid on or near the woodwasp grub, which, being paralyzed, cannot move and crush it. Her object achieved, Bricella now works her ovipositor out of the egg shaft and flexes her body before continuing her search. The Ricella egg hatches in 2 days, and the parasite larva feeds on the surface of the woodwasp. Born into the midst of plenty, it grows rapidly, and in 16 days has consumed the woodwasp entirely. The full-grown Ricella larva remains in the woodwasp tunnel throughout the winter. Next spring, it pupates, and about 2 weeks later, during early May, the young adult eats its way out through the wood. This is a female emerging. The males, which are the smaller sex, wait around on bark where females are coming out, and mating then takes place.
Our third parasite, Pseudorissa alpestris, greatly resembles Ricella in size and shape.
Often when Ricella is drilling her egg shafts, we find one or more Pseudorissa females standing nearby, watching but not interfering. When Ricella has laid her egg and departed, Pseudorissa moves in and searches with her feelers for the Ricella egg shaft. Having found it, she raises her body and inserts her ovipositor down the Ricella shaft. This is quite easy because Pseudorissa has a thinner ovipositor, seen on the left, compared with that of Ricella on the right. The egg shaft of Ricella leads, of course, to a woodwasp larva or pupa on which there is already a Ricella egg. Pseudorissa thus makes use of Ricella to get her egg onto the woodwasp. Notice how the covers are bent back out of the way, leaving the ovipositor quite unsupported, presumably because Pseudorissa does no drilling. Ricella has done the hard work. The ovipositor quickly penetrates the Ricella egg shaft and enters the woodwasp tunnel. Now the egg is about to be laid. Pseudorissa is yet another insect whose egg has a long tail, and as with Ricella, the tail emerges first. The tail is necessary because the egg is much larger than the channel of the ovipositor. To reduce the diameter of the egg proper, the fluid contents flow into the tail as soon as the tail begins to leave the ovipositor. After the complete egg is laid, we see the tail shrinking as the contents flow back again. Now we have a Ricella and Pseudorissa egg on the same woodwasp larva. The female Pseudorissa withdraws and cleans herself before searching for more Ricella egg shafts. Both parasite eggs hatch in 2 days. The Pseudorissa larva has a large brown head and very large jaws. When the two larvae meet, Pseudorissa seizes Ricella and squeezes it to death. Now Pseudorissa has the woodwasp to itself, and it feeds rapidly and is full grown in 3 weeks. Pupation takes place the following spring, and the young Pseudorissa adult comes out at the same time as the Ricella females are emerging. That is in May. Only by this careful timing can Pseudorissa make use of Ricella.
The last parasite in our woodwasp story is the Phaedriophaga myarinkii, a small calcid wasp only 1/8 of an inch long. Sometimes, in dead alder from which woodwasps had recently emerged, we found groups of very small larvae deep in the wood, in tunnels which should have contained woodwasp grubs. This was a puzzling discovery. How had they got there? Holes through the tightly packed wood dust of some woodwasp tunnels gave the first clue. We shall now see how the little calcid wasp, here sitting on an acorn, manages to lay her eggs on the woodwasp larva when it is still beyond the reach of the long ovipositor of Ricella. When the young calcids emerge in July and August, they walk around on the bark of dead woodwasp-attacked alder. and it's then that mating takes place.
After mating, the female disappears. She enters an old wood wasp exit hole and burrows down through the wood dust. Fragments of wood accumulate at the entrance to the tunnel as the chalcid pushes out the products of her burrowing. Thus, the chalcid makes her way down an unoccupied wood wasp tunnel until she is near a wood wasp larva in the surrounding wood. To reach her victim, she must now burrow through the solid wood. She keeps her route clear by continuing to throw out all boring products. She quietens the wood wasp by stinging it and lays up to 30 eggs on its body. Her work done, she retraces her path to the outside. The newly hatched chalcid larvae are minute, but they grow quickly, feeding in a group on the surface of the wood wasp. Within 2 weeks, only the head and skin of the wood wasp remain. The larvae overwinter and pupate in the following summer. The pupae darken and in due course escape to the outside by the route so carefully prepared by their mother. And so we have seen that the wood wasp is attacked by insect enemies in all stages of its development inside the dead alder stem. Nevertheless, many wood wasps emerge successfully, for nature keeps a balance between the enemies and their prey.